A wretched place indeed. What could have caused such degradation?
Hello there, Seraphim17 once again. This is my Dark Souls 2 walkthrough. We are in the Cardinal's Tower, and this video is entitled The Pursuer. So I was kind of conflicted because I have those little introductions when we enter a new area. I was tempted to add boss analysis into the boss fights because I do a series. Well, I did a series on Dark Souls, and I really should do them on more games because they're a lot of fun to produce, where I analyse the boss's attacks, I show you how to dodge them, and I have it all in a single video where I essentially cover and analyse bosses. And I was really tempted to split the bosses up into separate videos on this and have the analysis before I have the section where I beat them. But because this is a walkthrough and I wanted it to, you know, literally just boom, 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 get you to the end of the game, kill things, win things, all that good stuff, I felt like it would detract away from the brevity of what I'm trying to do. So what will be happening is the bosses will be just in the format they were originally going to be, and the boss analysis videos will follow. And I'm going to be uploading the playthrough much quicker so that I can get this extra content out. You know, while people are still interested in the game, because the game has been out longer than a month now, and a lot of people don't think it'll have the staying power of the original Dark Souls. I disagree with that, but for different reasons. So I'm going to be covering quite a lot of it in between other projects, because I'm still excited to play it, and I'm still excited to produce it. But a subscriber of mine called Mr. Yup something, he's an old favourite. He's been around these parts for quite some time now, and he always shares his opinion, and he always, you know, he's always cheerful, he's always opinionated, which is what I like to see in my subscribers. Mentioned that installing the game decreases a lot of the screen tearing on the 360, and I essentially responded to him saying, you know, the screen tearing is still abysmal, but I have to say that it does kinda seem like it improves it in certain areas. There is still a lot of screen tearing, and if you're on 360 and you're expecting it to be a miracle fix, it's not going to work. But what it does do is it minimalizes it to completely horrible as opposed to unbearably horrible. So it's definitely worth doing, and if you hate the VSync and you would prefer the lower frame rates, the PS3 is the best alternative, because the PC version's just come out and everyone is saying it's really fucking disappointing because all the stuff they promised isn't there. The one thing you can guarantee is a steady frame rate and a steady VSync. So it all depends on your preference and if you can actually get the PC version. But this right here, folks, is the alternative power weapon at the beginning of the game. Depending on what kind of build you're making, or depending on what kind of element you prefer or want to specialise in, will depend on which sword you use. If you want to do Faith, you want Lightning, so you've got the Hide sword that we got on the previous video. If you're doing Intelligence, you want Fire, and now you have a Fire Longsword that's going to scale and be powerful enough to take you through the rest of the game if you upgrade it. I've now given you both examples of really good alternatives to the weapons I'm going to be using, and then from this point onwards, when we get the upgrade materials, which is pretty much what I'm doing in these videos while we progress, I'm going to be upgrading the maces, and I'm going to show you how effective they can be against bosses. Because one thing that is always difficult when it comes to making a walkthrough is the very skill-dependent stuff. An example of what I mean: if there is a part of the game where the strategy that I show you relies on pinpoint precision dodging, you know, knowledge and confidence in the boss pattern, then you're probably going to lose out. Mainly because not everybody can do that, you know. It takes time to learn those kind of reflexes, to learn that kind of muscle memory. And the whole notion of a walkthrough is that you're doing it in such a way that anybody can imitate it, and if people are looking for help, they can find it and they can replicate it. If you're doing strategies that are literally so skill-based that nobody can replicate them, then it's not really a walkthrough at that point. At that point, it's more of a showcase, it's more of a showing-off kind of video type. And a good example of that in a Dark Souls like category would be your Soul Level 1 playthroughs, or in fact the one that I put up on Dark Souls 1, which was a restricted playthrough at Soul Level 1 where I took no damage for the entire game. You know, that is not going to serve as a walkthrough for anybody, because what I'm doing in those videos is so precise and so specific that you have to know the game and you have to have played quite a lot to even hope to replicate it, because it's not the kind of thing anybody can pick up and do. And that's the reason why I made them separate, because a lot of people have this impression and this delusion that people make YouTube videos to show off, and a lot of people do. But there are a lot of folks who make walkthroughs, which is the ones I'm specifically tailoring this point towards, who are making them to help and advise and share knowledge. And some walkthroughs aren't like that. Some walkthroughs are showing off, but some are legitimately intended to help. You know, it sounds very altruistic. It sounds kind of philanthropic, but there's no pretense there. It's not ego. It's not arrogant. It's literally, I've played kind of well on this game, or I've enjoyed this game quite a lot, and I want to show and share the things that I've learned through my mistakes. And unfortunately, because the internet can be an incredibly negative place, a lot of people misconstrue that, and like there's two sides to this. There's the one side where people just think you're up yourself and you're an asshole and you're elitist, which is never fun unless you like that kind of thing. And then the other side is the inferiority side of it, of you're making a walkthrough, yet you're making mistakes, you're doing this wrong, you're a noob, you're doing that wrong, you're a scrub, all the kind of derogatory shit that people throw around. And it can be very difficult for people to, you know, want to make walkthroughs, want to make guides, and I think that's a big shame, because people forget the most important part, which, you know, the intentions behind a lot of it is to share and help a community. And I think that can be a big shame. Like, for me, it doesn't bother me at all, because I've been doing this for over 3 years. I know now what YouTube is like. But when I first put videos up, I did not expect half of the stuff that got said on some of the videos, and I get ambushed here because I made a mistake. I was trying to lure him into blowing up the shortcut, if you're wondering. It didn't work too great for me, because this particular enemy can see you when you stand where I just stood, and he aggroes, and the aggro range on Dark Souls 2 is kind of crazy. I'm surprised they've not patched more of it, in fact, because it reminds me of Dark Souls 1 before they patched it. Whereas some of the aggro ranges and some of the gang/chain aggro is pretty disgusting. And I think it's a big shame, because it makes it feel less balanced than it indeed could be. And this part here, if you have a firebomb, use it, because this guy is a moron, man. I don't know what they did when they programmed the throwing AI, but it's just random. It's like he throws it where he thinks you're gonna go. It's so stupid, and I don't understand it. Like, it doesn't make any sense. It adds an RNG to something that made perfect sense in Dark Souls. If you stood still, they would hit you with firebombs. If you moved, they would miss you. That was the rule, that was the law, that is how you played. On this game, sometimes moving makes you easier to hit, and I don't think that ever should be the case at all. Like, I find it very strange. But the reason I'm even bothering with this guy is because I'm going to go up the ladder and fight the pursuer, and I got super unlucky just then, because he fell down and he ended up smacking me with a firebomb at point blank range and taking off quite a lot of life. But this is an optional fight, this, folks. You do not have to do this unless you're confident in it. I personally prefer to fight him here because it's a bigger arena. You don't have to worry about rolling into walls or bloody ballistas and things, but through the same point, you can't use the ballista to get a cheap kill, which is something worth noting. And anybody who's having trouble with the pursuer, and this walkthrough is just not helping them enough because this is perhaps a little bit too skill-based for them, if you go on my live playthrough, and you go to the particular section that covers the pursuer, I will show you how to kill him with a ballista, which does 95% of his life if you hit him correctly, and you can finish him off incredibly quickly. But the strategy here is simple. Because we're only doing a little bit of damage, you have to be very patient. You have to know when to hit and when not to hit. If you get greedy against him, he's going to probably kill you very quickly. Another thing to bear in mind is, depending on how you've leveled up, your adaptability will be low. You don't have any attunement unless you've leveled up, so your agility is going to be base agility, and base agility sucks. It sucks so hard. It essentially turns safe rolls into unsafe rolls, and you have to be a lot more careful with them. And a lot of people like this, a lot of people dislike this. I'm of the dislike camp, because I never think you should blame the roll. It should always be based on the timing, and I think Dark Souls had the perfect roll. It was loose enough so that you could use it comfortably, and it was tight enough so that not everybody could. And this game just... it changed that. That move there, where he does the shielded thrust and then the jump attack, is a very rare move. This recording right here was, let me think, maybe my 7th playthrough, 8th playthrough, and I had never seen that move before. And I have killed this guy a lot because I did New Game Plus with the Bonfire Ascetics on my first playthrough, and he shows up throughout the game. There's even a novelty fight with 2 of them, if you can imagine what that's like. So I was really surprised to see a move I'd never seen. The only other move I should really mention is if he hits you with the Curse Blade, which is the one where he glows blue. You don't want to be anywhere near that sword because it has almost a magnetic ability where if you're late on your roll, it will suck you into the blade. And it feels really cheap, but it's just because the iframes in the roll are nowhere near as safe as they used to be. But that move anyhow, if he hits you with it, he'll then proceed to be able to spam magic at you, which is a homing, like, multi-hit attack, and it does a lot of damage, so you want to be very careful because it turns it into a much more difficult fight. But that is the Pursuer, guys. That is the next phase of the walkthrough, and thank you very much for watching.